Welcome to the Insider Programs at Microsoft. This is the Windows and Office Insider Programs. Before we get started, you guys, it seemed like there was about 20% of you Windows Insiders and how many for Office Insider? All right, that's another 20%-ish. But what I'm going to tell you is that the Insider Programs are not just for home users. They are meant for both businesses and home users. These Insider Programs can be powerful tools that you can use to get ahead at work and improve your businesses. This entire conference, Ignite the Tour, has been about what's coming next. And I'm here to lay down a challenge for you guys that you don't want other people to know what's coming next with Windows and Office. So join our program, and nobody else will have a head up on you. And then finally, anyone can do it. There's no additional cost to join either the Windows Insider Program or Office Insider Program. So worst case scenario, you walk out of this session and you go back and tell your boss you got something free from Ignite where you can keep using it from today. As long as you're using Windows and Office, you get early access to our software. So bosses love free things, Insider Program's free. And also there's 80,000 organizations around the world that are already participating in the Insider Programs. So this isn't a brand new thing anymore. This is how organizations are deploying software. So the question you have to ask yourself is, do you want to take advantage of the latest and greatest that's coming from modern workplace? Is that what we're calling ourselves now? Modern workplace. That's what we're here for. Windows and Office. Okay, so for those of you that are not familiar with the Windows Insider Program and Office Insider Program, for the home users, the early access to Windows 10 and Office 365 preview builds in the ring of choice. We'll talk a little bit about the rings later, but I'm going to set that up right there. Try out Windows and Office features before anyone else. This is while they're still in development, which means it gives you the opportunity to give us feedback on what we're working on in Windows through the Feedback Hub and Office through Customer Voice, and we'll work through your issues together. For those of you that are not running it at work yet, WIP for Business and the Office Insider Program for organizations gets you early access to Win 10, just like the home version, but it also gets you access to Windows 10 or Windows vNext Server, as well as the Windows 10 SDK. It also gives you the ability to use those preview builds to validate what's next on your own apps and infrastructure, so you don't have to take Microsoft's word that things will continue to work in the next version of Windows 10. You can try it out and know for sure that, yes, this will continue to work. And then if you register as an organization using Azure Active Directory credentials, you can give us feedback from your organization's account, so we'll know that it's coming from a particular domain rather than a home user. It also gives you the ability to flight builds on multiple devices without you having to go configure each one of them individually. So we have group policy and tune and SCCM, and we'll cover those details later. At this point, it's a good point for me to say, any questions?
Is there a sticker for the Ninja Cat with the butterfly?
There was some piece of swag at some conference a while ago. I don't have any right now.
I've been in the program for 5 years. I've never seen it.
The Ninja Cat with the bow tie. All right. Jason, duly noted, we need a Ninja Cat with a bow tie as a badge for WIP for business people. I like the feedback.
Totally.
All right. So.
Is Jason back there?
He's on Twitter.
Oh, he's on, yes.
Yes. So before we get into more about the Windows Insider Program, need to talk a little about Windows servicing and how it's evolved with Windows 10. So how many have seen a version of this chart right here that has the release cadence? Okay. The thing that we announced back in Orlando, the first Ignite in 2018, was that we're expanding the support model for Windows 10 so that the legacy releases of Windows 10 will get an additional 18 months of support, but going forward, the fall release, the one that happens in 2009, will get an additional 12 months for enterprises and education. This is us listening to customers saying, hey, we need more time with the valid software, and so listening to customer feedback right there. But what I really wanted to call out about this cadence is that we've shifted from a model where we replace the operating system every 5 to 10 years, and instead it's every 6 months. But it means that if you're keeping up with this cadence, you've had the opportunity 6 times to talk to your own internal customers about how they're using Windows 10 or Office 365 and partner with them on digital transformation. So you don't get stuck on the same version of Windows for a long time and the same version of Office for a long time and only talk to the customers when they're having problems. It gives you an opportunity to have an ongoing dialogue about what can shift and what can't. So how about this slide? How many people have seen this pretty graphic? It grows up. Hey, security is really important. I like to pivot it a little and instead talking about being a business partner via agile servicing. How many of you guys have shadow IT in your organization? Yeah, okay. Enthusiastic hands go up. A business unit needs something, they go and swipe a credit card, and all of a sudden they have their own solution. You're like, where did that come from? With the rapid cadence of Windows and Office, you have an opportunity to stay in touch with those business units, not just every 5 to 10 years when you replace the operating system. You can listen to your, stand over here, not over there. Listen to your customers the way we listen to our insiders. It doesn't have to be on pre-release builds, but the shifting software means that it's an opportunity for you to engage with your customers. And then finally, analytics and a constantly changing software base can help you discover those surprise shadow IT applications. Windows Analytics is great at determining what's running inside your organization. So if you're replacing your operating system pretty regularly, you'll see what people have done. You're like, oh, that's a neat trick that you guys have been using. So it's good to stay agile in that sense. So I can tell you with these pretty icons how all this works, but instead I want to tell you a little story about a guy that I was speaking with up on the hub, or over in the hub, wherever it is. And it happened here yesterday. I was talking to a guy and he was telling me about how his organization spends 6 months doing user acceptance testing and network acceptance testing after Microsoft declares general availability for a new version of Windows. That delayed timeline means that they're eating into their support window. So that 18-month window for the spring and 30-month window for the fall means that they've taken a third of the release cycle for them to do their acceptance testing. It means they won't be deploying 1903, the thing that we're going to be releasing here in the coming months, until late winter of 2019. So significantly behind, and it's hard to keep up on a treadmill if you start at the back of it. So what the insider programs allow you to do, and we'll go to the pretty graphic, is stay ahead of that stuff so you're ready to push new releases to your company as soon as it's available. So pretty graphics. Why should you join the insider program in your organization? It's your magic crystal ball. You get to see what's next and explore while it's in development so you know what pre-work is required. If you want to set up something like information protection in Windows, and it requires a little bit of pre-work of knowing who belongs in what groups or what different settings need to be configured so that it actually is deployed correctly, this gives you a 6-month head start. You can say, hey, this is the finance department, they need to be in this information protection group, and you'll see it as we're developing, and you'll know that when that is deployed widely, you can take advantage of those features from day one. It can also help you articulate the positive changes through upgrades. So if you are trying to aid in the communication process for talking about the new version of Windows, is there something that is a hero feature that will help your organization? We had a really long conversation on the show floor today about Cloud Clipboard. How many people know what Cloud Clipboard is?
It's awesome.
It's awesome. So you can tell your users about Cloud Clipboard and start using it day one. Same thing with Snip and Sketch. If you're not satisfied with the snipping tool, there's a new version baked into the operating system called Snip and Sketch, which is a little bit more advanced, and you can start rolling that out to your end users. I don't know how often screenshots get taken in your orgs, but you do. So you'll know which of these new features are going to be relevant to you. The next thing up there, make sure your things don't break. If you don't find any issues in the Insider program builds for your organizations, you'll have confidence that the new feature update works for your organization. You don't have to read a support statement. You don't have to read a blog post from somebody that says, oh, there's some issue with this new version. You'll know because you've been running it for X number of months before it was generally released. If you do find an early bug, gives us a better opportunity to fix it. Rather than waiting for a patch several months down the line, reporting it during the development process gives us a better chance to fix something before it goes to general availability. And then it doesn't have to be a technical issue that causes breakages. You guys all talk to end users on a fairly regular basis, or at least when something breaks or they get something moved. If you have people that are going to be confused by the search icon looking a little different in the next version of Windows, that's changing in the 1903 version. So if you need to update internal documentation or quality of work instructions or something like that, this is the way that you can stay ahead of those user documentation challenges. The next thing up there, Whip for Biz is about listening to your end customers. Software as a service means that there's a lot of opportunities and iterations of Microsoft software to work through what your customers are asking for and tell you about things that aren't working. And it's not just the technical details, it's what are the business flow problems. And so as we're all trying to shift into a more modern workplace, it's about identifying those business challenges, and changing the software gives you the opportunity to have that conversation through feedback to get the product you want and that your end users want to stay productive. And then finally, move from being a technology laggard into a technology leader. Nobody started out 30 years ago wanting to be on a mainframe 30 years later. It just kind of happens. Inertia is a hard thing to overcome. And so what Whip for Business allows you to do is set into a cadence of constantly changing your software, and so that you don't wind up looking back 10 years from now and being like, boy, that Microsoft November 2019 update was a real doozy. I mean, you'll stay up to date with it, is the point there. All right. So this slide kind of represents what organizations, and the guy that I was talking to on the show floor earlier, how they used to do things before we released Windows 10. You'd spend a lot of time on the left-hand side of this line. You'd spend time doing OS readiness testing, network readiness testing, app compat, making sure that Adobe Reader worked on every version of Windows, user training, update all that documentation, do the driver update policies, and that would eat drastically into support life cycles. And you'd spend too little time using the thing that you tested to get to a state that was ready to use. With Windows 10 and Office 365, and bringing our first Insider preview builds out earlier, it lets you use telemetry-based management and flighting, as well as the analytics suite, to make sure things are working, so you can spend less time on the left-hand side of that line. After the software is available, using modern deployment tools like SCCM Intune and Windows Update for Business, as well as download optimization and pure caching and some of the other tech that is available to make updates easier, well, and the updated client improvement. Little thing that we've been doing over each version of Windows 10 is trying to decrease the amount of time that it takes to do a full install. And so and these are all averages and all dependent on individual variables, but it shrunk from something over an hour when Windows 10 started to less than 15 minutes, and we're still trying to make progress on that. So as you update, you'll take advantage of that kind of technology as well. Okay. Who's seen this slide? All right. So you all know that Windows is getting better, right? Yeah. For those of you that haven't, this is the illustration of all the features that we've added from the beginning of Windows 10 back in July 2015 up until 1809, the one that was in the Insider build or Insider program at the time of the last Ignite. Now, I'm not bold enough to put another chart up there that says, here's all the things that are coming in 1903, but I am going to point you towards a resource that has all that information. So this is the first slide that I'm going to ask you to take out your phones and take a picture of, because there's 3 links on there that are the basis of getting Whip for Business started in your organization. And so while you're fiddling with your camera, and pro tip for those of you that don't use it already, Office Lens is great at conferences. Office Lens users? Yeah, okay. It uses AI to detect the corners of the slide, so you only capture that, not me. So you don't look back and be like, who is that guy? No, you get the information you want. All right, So we want to meet you where your organization is. So the left-hand side there, we have many different ways for you to install pre-release builds inside your organization. If you're a GPO shop, we've got you covered. If you're an Intune shop, we got you covered. And if you're using SCCM, there's a way to distribute builds that way too. If none of those are applicable or you don't want to go large scale at first, you can start out with individual installations, start a little experiment in IT, grow it from there. That's always still available through the individual devices. Maybe you don't see any new features that you need to evangelize. You have internal documentation that needs to be updated. That's what that second column's for. All the new features that are going to be released in 1903 are available at that aka.ms/WIP Explorer link. It'll take you to our docs site, and that lists all the changes. It's our changelog for Windows. The other benefit of that site is it is based off of docs, which means that if there's changes that you are seeing that aren't captured there, you can edit it. We go through, it's all based off of GitHub. You make the change, it'll come back to our content reviewers and they'll approve it and publish it live. So if we miss something in the documentation or we're missing hey, how do I configure this with a policy? How do I configure this with Intune? You're missing that step in the documentation. You can tell us about that at scale with this doc site here. And then a couple other notes there. You can keep up with these new features, support the end user adoption, make those changes to user documentation, and understand the functionality of those upcoming features in the new release. Finally, on the far right there, you can, and that's for the gentleman on the show floor, you can start your validation earlier. By releasing our operating system while we're developing it, you give the opportunity to see the performance with many different devices. If you're using Windows Analytics, you can see, are there crashes that you can drill down into? And if not, you have a green light to go forward to semi-annual channel when it's available.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Sure thing.
At what point will I know the insider build will be identical to the official build?
What point do you know that the insider build is identical to the official build? So that will happen when we go to release preview. That's when we have a build candidate. And then it gets the update when it goes to semi-annual channel. And then that's when the 1903 builds will show up in SCCM. It will show up in Windows Update as the official build. Now for that time period where release preview and WIP slow and WIP fast are all in the same build number, that's when they are in sync. But it's only for that brief period of time where semi-annual channel, release preview, WIP slow, and WIP fast all have the same build number. Does that make sense?
I can imagine because as insider build, some of the builds might be beyond the official release.
So are you referring to skip ahead or are you referring to WIP fast?
Last one.
WIP fast, okay. Give me 2 slides and I'll illustrate it. And if I don't answer it for you again, cool. So rings are a fundamental concept in the Insider program, but it basically just means that it gives you a way to validate with data and insights, or validating with data and insights is the only way to keep up with rapidly changing technology. You can't rely on your old school ways of going around to each individual user and saying, hey, how's this performing? And then going out beyond that. This is the next step towards confirming that things are working as expected. I think I've said this a few times about maximizing the support window. Do your testing early so you're proactive rather than reactive. It'll let you take advantage of all the support that you're already paying for and won't eat into any of that. And then finally, you can kind of put your head in the sand and say, no, not me, but your competitors won't. Your employees will say, why are we still using Win 7? Why are we still using this old tech? Why are we still using tools that haven't been upgraded in 10 years? And that's going to be something that this will help you stay ahead of. Now here's the ring slide. So, okay. We have 3 rings that we release externally. WIP fast is that first one that comes out once a week. WIP slow comes out once a month, and it's after it's been validated by the WIP fast population. And then release preview happens once every 6 months or so, and it's right before we release to general availability. Okay? Generally, release preview is there for about 2 weeks, so it doesn't give you a great amount of time to do any of your validation and roll it out to all your devices. So that's why we recommend whip slow as the organization ring. When people are adopting pre-release builds, we recommend going with whip slow, and that's what we're seeing a lot from adoption. So your particular question about when do we know that whip fast, whip slow, RP, release preview are all in sync? There will be a time, and build numbers are what indicate the individual versions. There will be a time when whip fast, whip slow, and release preview all have the same build number. So it won't jump to whip fast before going to, or the 1909 version won't be going to whip fast before 1903 goes to release preview. Did that kind of answer your question?
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of, okay.
Is it 1903 or 19H1?
Okay, so if you want internal code names, it's 19H1. That's the one.
It's been sitting in the corner of my screen for almost half a year now.
Thank you for being an insider. I appreciate that. Yeah, those are our internal code names. Like, that's how we keep track of build branches. And so, yeah, 19H1 is going to be the thing that is 1903. And then naming things will happen for the second half of the year. But you would imagine 2019, second half of the year. Yeah. I don't know what the official code name will be, so
I thought it was maybe to do with, it's not 1903-ish.
No. No, it's not. It was just the naming structure that went, originally when they sent the email around, it was H119, but they realized that you sorted it. We would have H119, H120, H121, and then H220. Yeah, so they were like, renumber it 19H1. That's all it was. Any other questions? Okay. I think I've hit on everything there. Organizations should set up their own slow ring, 1% of the devices on whip slow. So what does it look like? After that slide, we've been asked, what does it look like in process? So once a month, we release a whip slow build. You can update that build onto 1% of the devices in your organization using management tools, group policy, Intune, or SCCM. And then use Windows Analytics while it's being used by actual users to determine whether or not things are performing as expected. So it's put it out, validate, confirm. So this is what it could hypothetically look like inside your organization, where you have a portion of your organization, IT and dev staff, starting with the slow ring, about 1%. This is the best way for you to validate in-house programs to ensure they're still functioning on your new releases. Seek volunteers from within the organization. We've heard from some insiders bringing HR into the fold is helpful. If you have HR in the program, it means they can't fire you for doing it. So like, yeah, stick with me, guys. It's the end of the day. And so the next ring out there is, in Windows Insider Slow, submit feedback if there are problems that you encounter. And if you have an account rep, share the link to the feedback you submitted with that account rep, or if you're submitting from AAD, we'll know that it comes from your organization. But the important thing about submitting feedback through the Feedback Hub is that we get diagnostic data from it. And so if you're telling us there's a problem with Windows Update, we get the diagnostic data from the full Windows Update stack to go back to our engineers to be able to troubleshoot it. Versus if you send somebody an email and says, hey, having a trouble with Windows Update, we're gonna be like, all right, well, can you run these particular log gathering tools, short step the tool, and get us the information we need at the first step. The next ring there is the targeted channel. This is for your power users. It's about 9% of the organization. And this is for the folks that, even though they're not running pre-release builds, they're still kind of your insiders. They're still the ones that are gonna tell you what's working, what's not working. And again, not just from a technical perspective, also from the business perspective. Hey, we aren't seeing this thing show up. We were really looking forward to X, Y, and Z, or we were really expecting something to be there, and we went and got some other off-the-shelf software solution. And it's like, okay, well, that's how you catch shadow IT from starting in the first place. And then finally, that last ring is the semi-annual channel. This is the one where you put your CEO. This is where you put the safest people. This is where no problems will occur. And so that's where 90% of your organization should live, is in that broad deployment ring.
We
Everyone.
don't put the CEO on the Mac. We know that, right? He's on the Mac.
Oh, he buys whatever he wants, or she buys whatever she wants. So in RS5, again, internal code names, the thing that turned into 1809, we made slow a priority for our insiders and for our organizations. We aspire to take all fast builds to slow if they meet a quality bar. It means that we don't always hit that. We aspire to take all fast builds to slow. If it doesn't meet that quality bar, we're not going to ship in a build to slow that would be breaking. Careful observers will note that we did not have a lot of slow builds in 19H1. Well, it's because we have a higher quality bar for slow. We want to get that build out once a month. And when we do, we try to tie it to Patch Tuesday so it is supported. You're not running an unsupported version of the operating system if you're running WIP slow. So we've heard from organizations that work in regulated industries, and based on my conversations on the tour here, that's many of you. If there are regulations that prevent you from running insider builds, and specifically this was an American regulation called HIPAA that protects patients' rights, that's why we added the support, because they're like, if you're asking us to run an unsupported version of the operating system in our production environment, it's like asking us to run Windows XP. So we are listening. We are trying to meet you guys where you are. So if there's something that's missing, or there's some piece of regulatory something that is preventing you from doing this, let us know, and we'll try to improve the program to make that possible. That's why we started adding security patches to WIP slow. All right, so how to get started? Step 1, 2, 3. Easy as 1, 2, 3. Register your credentials. Apply those via group policy, SCCM, or Intune, and then install and give us feedback. This is that share button there, that if you click that share button in the feedback hub, it'll generate a little AK short link, which includes a link for the Microsoft team to be able to see all the diagnostic data that was collected in there. Everyone got their pictures? I see people in the back. Click, 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 click. Paparazzi time. All right. Looking for the thumbs up from everyone. All right. There's one guy that's still taking a picture. Oh, you good? All right. Okay, all right, we'll go ahead. We'll come back to that later. All right, so how you set up rings. WIP for Business meant to serve organizations, all organizations, regardless of how they manage those devices. So group policy, MDM policies using Intune to configure how and when those preview builds roll out. And then to distribute the builds, we use Windows Update for Business or SCCM. And it's SCCM with dual scan. As of today, we are not distributing the ISO builds through SCCM, and I say that as of today. The other thing that's missing up there is, and because at the bottom of the slide here, I say, if we're missing anything, tell us about it through Feedback Hub. I know that you guys will tell me that I'm missing WSUS on there, and again, we have heard that, and as of today, it is not supported. As of today. It is important to us, is what yeah. All right, so before I go into the demo, any questions? You're all going to walk out of here and you're going to set this up, and I'm going to see a 100% ramp up and participate. No. Okay. So this demo is going to walk through how we set up rings in group policy, Intune, and SCCM. All right. So let me get control of the, yep. All right. First, we're going to start by going to the group policy editor. We're going to go into the Windows Insider Lab, and we're going to create a GPO in this domain. We're going to creatively name this thing WIP, because Windows Insider Program. We'll go ahead and OK. We're going to edit the policy. And then we are going into computer configuration, into policies, into administrative templates, and then we're going to jump down to Windows components. We're going to make it a little bit easier for you guys to see what I'm doing. List, maximize, and all of our policies live in Windows Update. Underneath Windows Update, there's another directory, Windows Update for Business. And in here we have 3 policies, which is how you set everything up for the Insider program. First thing we're going to do is manage preview builds. So we're going to enable the policy, and I'm going to show you these 3 options. Disable preview builds. If you want to ensure that nobody else is going rogue and setting up their Insider program, then you can disable preview builds via this mechanism, and it basically takes away the option to change the settings on the end user device. Disable preview builds once the next release is public. I've seen organizations use this option to start adding devices to the preview builds around this time in the release cycle because we're getting close. And then as the next build happens, or the final GA build happens, you don't have to worry about everything being in sync. It'll pull that device off of the WIP slow ring and make it match the next retail build. Okay? For this demo, we're going to use the enable preview builds, and then we'll OK. And then we'll go up to, now that we've enabled the preview builds, select how and when they are installed. We're going to enable it, and you'll see the same options that you saw on my ring slide earlier: WIP fast, WIP slow, and release preview. I'm going to leave that at fast. We'll go ahead and apply this, and OK. And just like that, we have a group policy enabled to set this domain, or set this group in the domain to be on WIP fast. All good? Got the group policy folks happy? Okay. All right, let's talk to Intune folks. In Intune, under software updates, we are going to create one, and we'll give it a creative name like WIP Lab. Configure it, and again, consistency. Same options that you saw in the group policy editor. We're going to change that to Windows Insider Fast. Same deferral. Oh, I didn't hit on deferral in the last one. If you want to defer an update for X number of days, you can use, both in GP and Intune, you can set this to say, we want this to only be installed after 7 days in the wild. Gives you an opportunity to read the blog post, see how things are reacting, if you are being cautious. If not, deferral policy to 0. Okay. We'll go ahead and hit OK. And now that we've created our update ring, perfect, we'll go in and assign it. So I have a group that has already been created called WIP-B for WIP for Business. Go ahead and select that guy, save it, and there we go. Intune done. Intune people happy? Okay, SCCM next. We have our SCCM console. We'll go into Windows 10 servicing, Windows Update for Business policies. We're going to create it, creatively named WIP. And then we have the same options of Windows Insider Fast, Windows Insider Slow, and then the release preview bits. We'll change it to fast to be consistent. And there we go. Walk through the rest of the wizard. And the Windows Update for Business policy is created. Now we need to deploy it. Creatively named. We have our victims/volunteers in our Windows Insider lab. And we're good to go. So that's SCCM. That's how we get it set up in all 3 of the environments. Everyone good? Everyone feel good? Great. All right. Next, Windows Analytics. There was a session earlier today, 12:30. Zach Dvorak, great guy. He's much more of an expert than I am in this. So I'm going to give you a 100 level of what Windows Analytics are. And if this is interesting and you didn't see Zach's session earlier, apparently they're recording us. So go watch the recording. Otherwise, there's plenty of information available online about how to set up Windows Analytics. Who's familiar with analytics? 1, 2, 3, 4. Not enough of you. Okay. Windows Analytics is 3 solutions: device compliance, device health, and update compliance, to give you an extensive data view of your organization and estate. It's also flexible and extensible. So if you want to get in and query the devices yourself, you have that option. There are some pre-built things that help you walk through the way, but if you want to say, hey, I want to see all the devices that are at this particular location, you can query based off of whatever attributes you have assigned. It also lets you drill down to the level of individual devices with problems. So if you see a metric flashing red, you can see specifically which device it is that's causing that issue. Is there a driver that's wonky on that device that's causing problems? And then it gives you confidence that your apps and infrastructure are ready to go for the next version of Windows 10. All good with Windows Analytics? Okay, we lost. All right, so this entire time I've been talking about the Windows Insider program. We also have the Office Insider program, which, like the Windows Insider program, gets you early access. So early builds with monthly upgrades for anyone that's an O365 subscriber. These upgrades include bug fixes, security updates, as well as performance enhancements. So it's everything that goes into updating the Office client. And then, just like the Windows Insider program, you get to use rings to control and shape the feedback, shape through feedback, how the Office features work. The recommended channel there is the monthly channel targeted, which is the equivalent to the Windows Insider program slow build. It's slightly before the regular cadence of Office, but it still gives you a early access to it. And the monthly channel targeted comes with support. So Windows Insider Slow comes with servicing. Office Insider Slow or monthly channel targeted gives you the ability to call up whoever your support rep is and say, hey, this thing is not working as expected. So slight difference between the programs there. And then the other difference is multi-platform support. Windows runs on a certain class of devices. Office runs everywhere. So you can be part of the Office Insider program on mobile platforms as well as desktop platforms, including Mac OS as well as Android and iOS. So depending on how your estate is laid out, if you have these different clients and you want to say, make sure they have the latest version of the productivity suite, the Office Insider program gives you that option as well. And then finally, deployment via configuration manager for multiple devices. So if you want to set up a single device, you can change that yourself, but I'm going to show you, and there was an AK link at the bottom there about how you set up multiple devices, but instead of pointing to that, I will show you how it works. So we're back in the SCCM console, and we're going to, instead of going to Windows 10 servicing, we're going to hit Office 365 client management. We're going to call it monthly channel targeted, and we pick the location from where the content comes from. And then we go through the Office customization tool. In here, select the architecture, select which Office suite, and because it's Office 365, we're going to put on Pro Plus, not the perpetual versions, because those won't get updates as quickly. Select which other product options you want on there, and this is where you change it from semi-annual channel, which is what the default is, over to monthly channel targeted. It also gives you the option to deploy which version, but if you leave that alone, it'll take the default. As you can see, we publish a lot of versions. Go ahead and jump through the next versions here and submit. Or review these things and then submit. All right. After the Office customization tool, we go through the rest of the wizard, deploy the application now. We give it the location or the collection that we want to go to, and we have our device collections because this is a device-specific setting, not a user-specific setting. And we're going to pick O365 Pro Plus, and we have an Office Insider group with 2 members. Jump through this. Here's where we put our distribution point from Contoso, of course. And then, OK. We finish our deployment settings. And then schedule it. We're going to do it as soon as possible. And then, because it is a software installation, and we're going to allow it to do a system restart if required. And there we go. Finish the rest of the wizard, review our options. OK. A little graphic that says that something's working. And there we go. Jump past it. All right. At this point, everything would be rolled out to the end user device. All good on Office Insider program? OK. So what does success look like? We have Philippe and we have Paul. Both of these gentlemen we met at stops along Ignite Tour, some of our events in other cities, or have communicated with us on social media, and they're both using it. Paul works for a government organization, so not exactly the most risk-seeking organizations in the world. And Philippe works for AstraZeneca, a pharmaceutical company. Again, not the most risk-seeking organization, but they're both using the Insider program to look at the builds, make sure that they stay ahead of the deployment curve, and ensure that user education is maintained throughout the Windows release cycle. So these two guys are doing this successfully. I want to help you guys do this successfully. So next year, when I'm standing in Amsterdam, I got a picture of one of you up there. We good with that? Or I want to get you promoted. Let's do this thing together. It's all about getting Windows and Office, the next version, out there. This is the last slide. I'm going to have you take a picture of this one. This has all the links that are important, as well as some Twitter handles. Now, Donna Sakar, my boss, the head of the Windows Insider program, she is committed that if you need help convincing your organization, that she will help. That we've flown to several different locations, met with several different companies. We don't have Eddie from First Citizens up there anymore, but there's plenty of opportunities for us to help you guys get set up. And we're always looking for a good story of somebody who wasn't able to do something and we're able to get it working for you. So please connect with us on Twitter, either the official handles or Donna's handle itself. And I still have 15 minutes remaining, which means you guys didn't interject enough questions. But I do have a remote desktop that has the next version of Windows, if you guys want to poke around that. Or we can call it a day and you guys can go get a beer or whatever you want.
The 18361?
Yes, it is the latest. All right, so remote desktop? Cool, all right. Let's see what happens here.
Can you do a Windows dot? Just real quickly, because
Oh, which?
Windows dot, Windows point. I want to see it, and I'm 2 builds behind because of this event.
Wait, I'm what?
A Windows dot, which brings up the emoji menu.
Let's
I want to see the new version.
Yes, let's see. And I think this is what I get for leaving Jason with my virtual machine. He changed my theme. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so that's Windows dot, the
Would you
latest.
mind clicking on the Omega side?
We're getting really specific. I wasn't planning this as part of the demo.
Right. No, this is what I wanted to see.
Oh, okay.
This is a really cool new feature. It's really helpful for me because I'm in France, and this is something that in our environment, which is multilingual, is like a really big issue. And this is brand new, and this is going to help us a lot.
That's awesome.
It is actually. This is actually a fantastic feature. It's a feature that we actually gave feedback on, and the feedback actually is now transforming into a feature that's coming to Windows. To Windows. I mean, this is not something that our devs are debugging or adding to a product that we use internally. This is a feature that has been added to Windows based on feedback coming from people, like us.
That's pretty cool.
And that is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Power of Insiders right there.
The Insider program.
You should get the Surface headphones.
Let's see, did they leave any Surface headphones for me to get? No. All right, any other features that we want to just call out here? Huh? Sandbox. All right, good. That one I actually kind of predicted, and I think that again, Jason, I had it pulled up. Were you messing with this during my presentation?
Hey man, I had demos to do too.
Oh, actually, you know what? I'm already in the Windows Sandbox.
Sandception.
Yeah, this is the inception of everything right here. I was also predicting you guys wanted to see Diagnostic Data Viewer, so I pulled that up. So this is Windows Sandbox. Does everyone know what Windows Sandbox is? Okay. For the folks that are shaking their heads, it's a new virtualization technology that's a lot easier to set up than Hyper-V. So instead of you going in and setting up your own switch, setting up your own VHDX, you got this literally, and it would have made a lot more sense if I had just gone to Windows Sandbox. but it's just a system setting where you go and enable the thing. It's really easy to set up. But also great for if you want to have all your application sandboxed and have it destroyed when you close out, done. And this is going to be a big area of investment going forward. So I would, even though it was introduced in 19H1, I would expect there to be more application or more uses coming in the future releases. So something that's exciting that's coming down the line. Yes, I am going.
Is there a relationship between Sandbox and the new virtualization service that's been announced today?
I'm not sure.
It's important to us.
It's important, yes. All right. So when I've done these events in the past, people are like, well, what kind of telemetry data are you guys collecting on us? What's being sent back? We do include this diagnostic data viewer tool. This is what it looks like, the data that we pull back. So again, you don't have to trust us about what we are sending back from your device or read a white paper. You can go download the diagnostic data viewer and see what's being sent back. And so you can see token broker errors, something was terminated, but no personally identifiable information. We try not to collect that whenever possible. Now, I also have the new Office icons down here. So I know that I'm on Office Insider. There's no what?
1904?
This is 1903, maybe it's 1904. You know what? Great thing about, great thing about going in is you can see what version number I have. Set this thing up. So File, Options, and that's not where I'm supposed to go. Thank you. Does somebody else want to come up and do this demo for me? I feel like a count. And there we are, 1904. Yeah. Last time I did this was in February, so it was not 1904. I'm glad the machine keeps itself updated. And then equivalent there for, yeah, the equivalent there for seeing the version number in Windows. If you ever want to confirm that, is WinVer. And so you can see that this is 356. It's not 61. I guess I didn't make it to 61.
Well, it was only released last night. So.
Yeah, but I expect things to stay up to date. Okay. So I mentioned the docs site. This is all the things that have changed in 19H1. And again, apologies for a display experience where I'm remoting into something over in the US, but you can see everything that's changed. And we have it filtered down to for business users, and then the device, and then the features that are for everyone. So what's new? This is where you're going to see probably the emoji picker at the top. Yep, emoji 12.0 update. Added a couple builds ago. And then we also classify all of the app changes. So I believe in 19H1 we changed your phone. So all of this is cataloged. It's all based off of docs. If there's anything missing, anything you see that's wrong, you can update it, and then we'll make that change. And then finally, to keep track of which build is where, so to your earlier question of how do you know everything's in sync, this Flight Hub at the top of the docs page has all of the builds. So you can see 18362 is the one that's sitting in whip-fast right now. 356 is what's sitting in slow, what's sitting on server, and the latest version of our SDK. aka.ms/flighthub is the link for this guy here.
Where are we with screen mirroring in your phone for non-Samsung devices?
I would check the blog to see when
Okay.
when those changes come up.
But it's coming, right? It's not going to be limited because we're very close to release right now, but we're not going to be limited to.
Yes, so what you're seeing is that there are, and you can see it from the way that the docs are laid out, that there are what's new in Windows apps. and how some of these can happen out of band with the operating system. Once the hooks are in the operating system, then they can be updated as a service. And so there's several of these features that, not just related to your phone. Feedback Hub, call it Sticky Notes, is one that was actually revved a bunch of times during the last release and continued to get feature updates through 19H1. So just because
Those are
Windows
released
is
through the
shipping.
store, right?
Yes, those are
And-
both
and
through the
updates through the
store. Yes.
Yeah.
Anything else, folks? Okay. Thank you for your time. Thank you for spending the end of the day at Ignite with me. I hope you had fun, and thanks.